Welcome back to Garden Talk, brought to you by the Penn State Erie County Extension Master Gardeners. I'm your co-host for today, Mike Bailey, along with
Ellen Diplacido.
Ellen. Welcome.
Recording from home again.
Yes, we
Hi,
are.
Mike.
We are still in that kind of a mode, and in fact, who knows? Maybe we're going to continue this. Who knows?
Yeah,
but
works pretty well.
I know we want to talk today about one of your favorite topics, vertical gardening, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It is one of my favorites.
Yes. Can you explain to our listeners what we actually mean by vertical gardening?
Well, you and I kind of call it as teaching our plants to grow up as opposed to trailing along the ground. So whenever we plant, we always provide a support for most of our plants so that instead of growing along the ground, they actually grow up. And we do that for a lot of different reasons. I mean, if anybody visited Emmaus Grove, they would find a very beautiful space, and most of that space shows how we do implement vertical growing or growing our plants vertically. So we teach our plants to grow up, and we do that by providing support.
Okay, now I probably need to add something right here, if you don't mind. You obviously have to select certain varieties. I mean, you can't have everything on a vertical support, can you? I mean, your potatoes aren't going to grow up on a vertical support.
No.
But
our tomatoes do.
Okay, tomatoes, good one for tomatoes, yes.
Beans.
Beans, yes. But in order to do this, you need to buy pole beans, right?
Absolutely. I was going to mention that because the one year I thought I was buying pole beans and I didn't. They said that they would grow to like maybe 12 inches or something like that high, but they were not the pole beans that would grow on a pole or on a support.
Yes.
So, yes, make sure you look at the package and make sure they are absolutely pole beans. And you could talk to your the person at the store or the garden center, wherever you buy your seeds, to make sure that they are pole beans.
So backing up a little bit, you're providing some kind of a vertical support system, right? Like a fence or like a teepee.
It could be a trellis.
A trellis of some sort, an arbor of some sort,
Arbor.
Anything.
We've done stakes and cages actually too. Whenever we plant our peppers and our tomatoes, we put the stake in before we plant because we don't want to destroy or harm the roots and put the stake in later. So when we're planting like our tomatoes and our eggplant and our peppers, we put the stakes in as we plant so that we ensure that we don't damage the roots of the plants.
Okay, and you're right, and we do that, and we try to support everything, Okay, so you're being a little bit more inclusive than I was thinking originally when it talked about vertical gardening.
Okay.
No, and that's okay, but I'm thinking of things like beans and peas and tomatoes and cucumbers,
squash,
in the winter vining squash in particular.
Right.
All those vining plants. Okay, it's really nice to be able to grow those, but at the very beginning, like you were saying a minute ago, you have to be careful about making sure that you're selecting the right varieties. And I always thought that beans were pretty good about specifying bush versus pole. But I have found that, like you just mentioned also, peas, it's not as clear. It doesn't seem to be as clear cut. Okay,
no,
on peas.
Yeah.
I mean, and we like to grow the sugar snaps. And you have to be careful. I've looked at some of those sugar snap packages, and sometimes it's difficult to tell whether or not those are the vining ones or the lower bush types. In fact, you went to a store not too long, a couple of years ago, and they go, well, we don't know, and they had to get some clarification.
They didn't, right?
They had to get some clarification themselves. So be careful about that. And with tomatoes, the nice thing about attaching your tomato plants to a fence, you'll get a lot of growth out of what they call an indeterminate. Okay, a tomato plant or a plant that doesn't stop growing once it reaches a certain height.
Right.
It'll
Goes
continue
off.
to grow.
Correct.
And certainly,
Which brings up, like part of the reason why we would want to grow vertically is just that reason, because they'll continue growing. And if you have, you can maximize your ground space the more that you teach your plants to grow up as opposed to along the ground.
Okay, so we're increasing productivity. We're decreasing pest and disease because you'll get those plants up and off the ground. You'll get less bugs, that crawl on the ground. And you also, the plants will dry out, and therefore you get the leaves dry off, I guess I should say better. And you get less plant disease because of that. And it's also easier to harvest, isn't it? When the beans,
yes, because we kind of chuckle about that because we're all getting a little bit older, and the less we have to bend over when we're harvesting or taking care of the garden, the better off we all are.
Right.
So as long as they're growing upward, we're not bending over so much.
You're right. And our pole beans, we've been able to nurse them along, so they produce beans pretty much all year, right?
Right.
They have a much longer harvesting season than the bush types. So I really think everybody should consider doing that. Now this is a little bit different than vertical wall growing. Sometimes you'll go someplace and you'll see that people have containers attached to walls, etc. It looks gorgeous, doesn't it? But
it's beautiful. Nice hobby, I think.
Yeah, but it's that is very labor intensive because you got to be there almost every day. You got to take care of the watering, depending upon how much sun exposure and wind exposure you're getting, and you got to be careful about what types of plants you put into those things and stuff like that.
Right.
But some places, some fancy restaurants, you'll see that and I go, oh, wouldn't that be nice to do in the garden? Yeah, it's nice, if that's nice. If you got some time to spend doing that. So, and that's wonderful if you do.
Sure. It's nice to try, but I don't think I would try that with something that I really want to produce some good vegetables or fruit from. You got to remember also when you water those wall vertical gardens, the water is going to wash that fertilizer out of the soil, so that could end up being a problem also.
Okay, very good.
You have to make sure your soil is healthy.
Well, Ellen, I think we've covered this topic pretty good, and we're pretty much running out of time here. So I thank everybody for listening, and I hope that was helpful. And I think try some of those vining plants that'll climb up a fence for you or a teepee and increase that productivity for you. So thank you for listening.
Okay. All right.